So I'm going to be introducing our long-awaited guest, our festival highlight, Sou Fujimoto. He was born in Hokkaido in 1971. He graduated from the University of Tokyo in 1994 and established his own office, Sou Fujimoto Architects, in 2000. Noted for delicate light structures and permeable enclosures, Fujimoto designed several houses, and in 2013 was selected to design the temporary Serpentine Gallery Pavilion in London. After establishing Sou Fujimoto Architects in 2000, Fujimoto went on to design buildings across Japan and Europe. Many of his designs are built around his idea that the function of a building is designed by human behavior. In 2019, Fujimoto was selected as one of 23 architects to reinvent Paris. His contributions to this project include a redesign of a plot in the 17th arrondissement of Paris. So welcome, Sou.
Hi, Sue.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's our pleasure.
It's our pleasure.
I'd like to say thanks to Carlo also for getting us in touch with your office. Thanks for accepting the invitation.
Great. So shall I start?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So I will share screen. Before that, hello everyone. I'm Sou Fujimoto, and I'm in Tokyo now. And of course, it's really pity that I couldn't come to the place to meet with all of you physically. But of course, in these situations, it is. I have to accept this online talk. But anyway, I think it's really wonderful to be invited to this special event, and I'm really happy to show some of my projects, including the recent ones. And I also like to say I have one project in the Philippines now with my friend, and I will show it today at the end of the presentation. So I hope you enjoy it. So I will share the screen. Okay. Yep. Do you see this?
Yep.
Okay, so I think I have around 45 minutes, so it's rather compact. But the title is it's always the same. The between nature and architecture, because I think this is quite fundamental topic, fundamental basis of architecture thinking, and it is relating to my personal background, because I was born and grown up in Hokkaido. It's a northern island of Japan full of nature. So I was grown up in the middle of the nature. And then I moved to Tokyo to get into the university. And then Tokyo, as you know, it's really a super artificial city. And then I learned architecture, and now I have an office in Tokyo. So for me, nature in my childhood days and in Tokyo now, both of them are quite important background. And both of them looks quite different, almost opposite. But for me, even though it looks opposite apparently, but I like to, both of them are very important for me. So I like to integrate both of them, nature and artifacts, to create a better living environment. Because even in Tokyo, we have kind of a nature like a sky, a wind, or some small trees, and so on. So I believe the people could not live without nature, and people could not live without architecture. Both of them are very important. But how to integrate is like a nice challenge, and we could invent many different ways to mix them together. And then this is, of course, like a physical nature and physical architecture. But I think the interesting point of this contrast of the nature and architecture and integration of both of them are that we can develop our thinkings from these simple basics to more conceptual or abstract thinkings, for example, the relationship between inside and outside, or relationship between simplicity and complexity, or private and public, connected and separated. All of those kind of the different things, opposite things, could be well melted together to create our richer living environment. So starting from this simple nature and architecture relationships, I like to talk about those many different opposite things relating to architecture, and then how I try to meld them together. The first one is the Serpentine Pavilion. It's already 7-8 years ago, but this is still a very important project because this is showing kind of many different types of the opposite things are well integrated. And you can see, of course, this is in the middle of the nature, and we created artifacts. So nature and architectural relationships is reinvented, but at the same time, it is quite simple, but in a sense, because it's made by all straight lines and 90-degree junctions, super artificial and super clear geometries. But at the same time, when it is built, because it has a lot of thousands of joints and grids, then finally you see nice positive complexity in the simplicity. And then those kind of the interrelationships between inside and outside is also quite interesting because there are no walls, no strong walls, many lines, thin lines, 2 centimeter thin lines are creating these structures. But as you can see, where the densities of these lines are quite repeated, then it is more like getting opaque or translucent or opaque to block the view to outside. And some part, it is more more transparent. And it is not like a wall and a window, but it's more like the gradient differences of the transparencies. So then inside-outside relationships is recreated, and more soft boundaries are created. And then the scales is also quite interesting, tiny scales, 2 centimeters, and then each steps is 45 centimeter. And then the architecture is more like a furniture scales. And then we have architecture scales, and then we have a landscaping scales too. So from tiny scales to the larger scales, we have kind of a nice transitions from the smallness to the largeness, and then melding them, not just a contrast of the small and large, but meld them together to create such gradations to each other. And then straight lines, the curved cloud-like soft surfaces, and artificial or kind of a super geometrical structures, but at the same time, the cloud-like softness, and furniture-like things, architecture-like things, and the landscaping-like things. So all of those kind of different categories in our normal thinkings are melted together to create such transitions, and the continuities or gradations are created. So this is the point I talked about. Of course, it is bringing the nature through these translucent walls, not walls, but translucent structures, and people will feel the greens even from outside. But not only about those kind of the straightforward relationships between the nature and architecture, we can have a beautiful integration of such a contrast of a simplicity, complexity, inside and outside, and the furniture, architecture, landscape, and transparency and translucencies and opaqueness, and so on. So I believe that is why this is very important for me, because it was a challenges for all the existing kind of a fixed thinkings about the architecture, and try to reinvent how to create architecture structurally and like relationships between inside and outside, and the relationships between the furniture and architecture. It means relationships of the functions itself. So yeah, we can, because in the normal architecture, we have a lot of those kind of the fixed, like a divided things. Inside and outside are divided, and simplicity and complexity is divided. Nature and architecture is divided. But we can meld them together to create more richer gradient ranges of the varieties and the diversities. So that's the point to start. And then this is the project I realized 2 years ago in France, the city of Montpellier. And the city of Montpellier is in the south of France. It means it's the climate, the weather is really wonderful, like a Mediterranean climate. So even in the February, even in the winter time, they can have a lunch on the outdoor terrace. So that has been their lifestyle, enjoying the beautiful weather, coming out on the terraces. So those kind of the traditional lifestyle has been creating the culture of the city. So when I did the competition, I like to respect those kind of the lifestyle of those local people and respect such a wonderful weather, and then try to create something new based on that. And then finally, we proposed those kind of the simple ideas, huge, many balconies sticking out from a lot of balconies from the buildings to create such an outdoor living environment. And some of the apartment has 3-4 huge balconies, and the largest balcony is 5 meter wide and 8 meter deep, so it's quite big. And showing, wonderful weather, wonderful lifestyle of the city, expressing that by architecture. And this is a view from one of the terrace, large, full of the greens. And interesting point, one of the most interesting point is, as you can see the other balconies, the neighbors' balconies, floating around you, next to you, or above or below. So you feel you are not isolated. You are nicely connected with the proper distances. So the privacy is respected, but at the same time, you can have the good relationships with the neighborhood. So those kind of the feelings of the community, or sharing this wonderful weather together with other people, living together, is quite interesting point of this project. Because normally, those kind of the tower housing, privacy, dividing your areas, and then separate your territories from others. So quite like isolated, too much divided situation has been developed. But in this case, we try to recreate such a feelings of the community, the neighborhood, and relationship with your friends. And then finally, it is, of course, functionally, you have your house, privately defined, but if you like, you can come out to your terrace and enjoying your life on the terraces. But at the same time, you can have the conversations or the subtle relationships with the neighbors. And those kind of the re-sharing the feelings of the community, or recreating the feelings of everybody's together, living together feelings. It's very, very important, I feel. So this is like a vertical village, and like a reinvention of the traditional community feelings in a contemporary way. And of course, in this COVID situation from last year, this kind of the balconies is outdoor, so open air, but at the same time, you are not isolated because you have a proper distances, and then you can have the conversations to each other in a safer relationships. So I think those kind of so in here, you can say, it's not just completely separated. It's not completely connected, but it's like the both of them integration of separation and the connections. And then those relationships could be controlled by you. If you like, you can have intense communications. But if you like to keep your privacy, then you can just be yourself. So those kind of the ranges from the private to the public, community, and you yourself could have like a good gradient ranges where you can choose as you like. And that is, of course, like in a photo, it is quite like it has an impact, like an iconic landmark to represent the beautiful weather and lifestyle of the city. But in real life, those kind of the recreation of the community is more important than how it looks like. And of course, how it looks like is a good result of these community feelings, because even from outside, people can feel those balconies are the place where people are living there. It means it is like a place for the people. It's not like an object. It's more like the people's life are coming out. And then people's life is relating to the physical surroundings also. So that is why this is already part of this area, city, and welcomed by the local people. Not isolating, not making an object, but more like open up and then creating human relationships between the residents, and also between the residents and the people who are living around them. And then, some of the housing unit has 2-3 balconies. In this case, the housing unit has 2 levels. So the balconies has 2 levels, and they're connected by the inner staircase, not inner, but outer staircases, but privately connected. So those kind of the vertical living, like floating living spaces are created. The view from the drone. And of course, this photo was shot right after the completion. So most of the terraces has less furnitures, but now, all the terraces is full of the furnitures, full of the life on it. And again, coming back to this exterior view, this is, because this is quite like a representation of how people can live together, sharing the kind of community, and then open up to the surrounding residential areas and linking to these local situations. That is why this is quite an exciting project for me. And then this is the latest built project for me. It's located in Maebashi, 1 hour city in Japan. Maebashi city is 1.5 hours from Tokyo. And then this is a hotel, half renovation and half a new build. So these buildings behind it, this is an existing hotel buildings. And we renovated these buildings. And then we created those kind of hilly landscaping-like buildings. The housing units, the hotel rooms are also inside of this mountain. So this is a new built areas. Then try to create because it has like an inner pathway going through the plots from this side street to the back street. So we try to create this pathway as part of the architecture, but at the same time as part of the landscape, and then try to integrate them together. So I said, here another contrast, another opposite things, the architecture and the city. But I try to reintegrate them or merge them using those kind of landscapes. So the architecture, city, and landscape are well melded, well integrated to create the new experiences and the new three-dimensional experiences in the city. Because this pathway going up to go through the plots, but at the same time, this pathway is going up, like climbing on the mountains and then moving around. So this kind of the winding pathway is completely different from the normal pathway in the city. So I try to bring such a new experiences, and those kind of a small pathway, like a small tunnel, is also created. So our intention is to create such an urban environment, which is like the nice mixtures of architecture, city, and the landscape, not like a dividing three of them, but more melting together. Then, yeah, this is a built situation. It's almost like this. And then you will see how suddenly in the middle of the city, the Green Mountain is there. Well, because this city is alongside next to the huge river. Then this street has also like a small river, which means from ancient times, because of the river, those kind of the hilly landscape was there. Then this side, then the other street has one level differences. So it means historically, long history, thousands of years or 10,000 or 100,000 years ago, this city, before making the whole city, they had those kind of the hilly landscapes because of the river. So in a sense, we try to rebring such an ancient geographical memories in bringing into this current city, and then try to merge them together. So not just melting architecture, city, and the landscape, but try to melt or try to merge, try to integrate such an old memory and the current city. So different timeline are integrated in here. And then, of course, in the renovation, we also have to talk about the different timeline, because this building is more than 50 years old or 60 years old, so old buildings. So we try to keep it, but we demolish in this lobby space, lounge space. We try to keep the structure, but we demolished all the floors to expose the columns and the beams 4-story high, and then put the skylights to bring the natural light coming in, to create such a 4-story atrium. And we added new pathway, gangways, and then the winding staircases. And we also add the collaboration with Leandro Erich, the artist from Argentina, to design those kind of the ghost of the pipings, which reminds us like the memory of the old buildings. And then we put the greens. Then you can see different elements like old buildings and new buildings. So old and new are well integrated. Art and architectures are reintegrated. And the greens and sunlight and then such artificial structures are well integrated. So such different layers of the integration of opposite things are finally merged together to create these atrium spaces. Then this is the photo, the winding staircases, then concrete structures, and from the top floors you see how those kind of the labyrinth-like feelings are created. Like this. Pipes going through the greens. So in here, we try to, treat the architectural project not only as an architectural project itself, but also as an urban project. And then combining the different timelines together, combining the art pieces and architectures, not just put the art pieces on it, but more like really melting the art and architecture together. And then finally creating such the huge atrium, because you have a sunlight, you have a daylight coming in. So it's outdoor or not like interior atriums, but more like exterior, half exterior, like a urban plaza as an interior atriums or something like that. Then this is another build project recently, the last spring. This is Uniqlo. As you know, this is a Uniqlo. of Uniqlo. Uniqlo Park in Yokohama, in Japan, the 1 hour from Tokyo. And this is the building. And then, of course, you all know Uniqlo. They sell the clothes, and then the sister brands GU. Then this shop has a 3-story building. And then the ground floor Uniqlo, this floor, the second floor, the GU, and then the top floor is Uniqlo and GU, but for kids, both of them. And then, but of course, the main concept is these surfaces. This is like the huge staircases as a roof from the ground level to the top rooftop. And then this is not just a staircase. You see there are many large, huge slides, bouldering, and many different types of the playgrounds are scattered throughout the whole buildings. And this is the concept of the Uniqlo Park. Then this is, we discussed with the CEO of Uniqlo, the Mr. Yanai, together with the Japanese creative director Kashiwa Sato. He's like the top creative director in Japan, and me, discussing about what is the new retail space. And then finally, normally the shop is like should be quite efficient and more like enclosed, creating an inner world only for this, like the brand. But we try to go to the opposite side, open up the building, and then creating such a public spaces on it. And then it is like the integration of park and the architecture, or the playground, integration of the playground and the building together. And then the meaning of this is quite important, I think, because once you open your shop, welcoming the public people, then for what? Because this is for free, so everybody can just play. But because of this kind of an open park, huge playground, the whole surrounding environment increase the value. Not only just increase the value of this shop itself, but creating the values for all the surroundings and creating a good reason for people to come, not only for this shop, but for this surrounding neighborhood, retail areas. And then as a result, of course, more people come to this Uniqlo shop. But it's not like it's not like only for yourself, but open up yourself and then creating values for all of these areas. And then finally, the value of this shop is also increased. So this strategy is quite like important for this current age, I think, because the building itself should not stand or should not survive sustainable by itself, or the retail shop also could not survive sustainably by themselves. But all the surrounding environment and all the related environment sharing the values to each other and then increasing the values together. So that is those kind of an open strategy to create a public park by the money of private money, but then so increasing the value of this area because by this public park, and then finally increasing the value of this private shop. So the relationship of the private and public is now merging to each other. And then not only like architecturally playground and the shops are merging to each other. Of course, this is quite interesting. But more interesting things is the private and the public is also merging to each other to create the values to this surrounding neighborhood. So this is quite like, full of the people and the sunny, holidays, and a lot of people playing around from morning to the sunset, and many different types of the toys or those kind of the playing items are scattered around. So creating such a public spaces by the private money, increasing the whole value of the whole environments, are like quite important challenges for this coming like a sustainable ages, because sustainability means everything is connected. You couldn't be there by yourself. You are always connected to the others. And you give something to others, then you get something from the others. So those kind of the interrelationships or the network-like relationships from people to people or the buildings to the surroundings and the shops and the neighborhood are getting more and more important, I think. That is why the visions of this shop is quite important. And then this is like architecturalized visions of those kind of the sustainable age. Yeah, it's quite like my son, 5 years old, also, yeah, we brought him to this place. From morning till the sunset, he was just playing, continuing playing. And all of those other families are also playing around. So this is like I think this like the concept itself could be more spread throughout the whole world, because the playground for kids is like it's globally like amazing concept. And then this is like an ongoing project in Tokyo. It's rather like for me, it's quite a great honor to be part of this project, because this is right next to this Tokyo station. So it means in the heart, in the center of Tokyo. This building, the red brick building, is a historical Tokyo station. And then our project is right next to that, northern part. And then this is one of the tower of the large development. And then we are collaborating with the Mitsubishi Jisho. Mitsubishi Jisho is a Mitsubishi Real Estate Incorporated. And then together with the Mitsubishi Jisho Sekkei, the design office. And we are like the design architect. And then this is like the tallest skyscraper in Japan. 390 meter high, will be finished 2027. So in 6 years. So we are now doing the design process. The tallest part is 390 meter high. It's huge. And then I am part of the design team of this crown part from around here to the top. And then what we proposed was this part. Well, what is this? This is a day view, and then you will see this part. It's like the skyscraper open up and creating such a kind of a plaza in the sky or park in the sky in here. And then the program, most of the program from here to here is the office. We have a sky lobby of the office around here. And then we have a hotel here on the crown. And then we have several different programs between around here. So around these areas, almost like a 300 meter high, many different programs are joining to each other. Sky lobby of the offices, restaurants, and the spa, gym, and hotel lobbies, and so on. So this is like a special areas. And we proposed should not be like just enclosed buildings, but creating a place for the people and creating a place where different programs are making a good relationships to each other, which means different peoples for different programs could meet unexpectedly to each other. And then this should be, so it's like an open, large urban plaza, but I believe this should be visible even from the ground level. So because it is an urban plaza, but if it is not visible, then people couldn't recognize from the real urban ground level. But if it is visible, then people can recognize ground level where they are standing, and then 300-meter high could be connected. And then people feel they like to go up to this another urban plaza. That was very important, to link ground level to the 300-meter high level, to open up the possibilities of such a vertical city. So that is why we open up this area, and then creating, this is more zoom in. And this is semi-outdoor space. We have like an openings to above. So the rain comes in, and then wind is properly blocked. So not so strong wind, but the rain comes in, so full of the nature. And then you will see, this is the view of this open plaza. It's almost like a hill, or it's almost like a park. And then open up the view to the Mount Fuji. And then this is almost like a 30-meter high. So it's quite like a huge openings. And then above we have openings. Rain comes in, daylight is coming in. So that is why we can have trees on it. And then we propose this is like a sloping plaza, not like a horizontal plaza, because we have several different levels like this and several different programs. And if you have the sloping plaza, sloping surfaces, then this surface could go through different levels, which means that could connect the different levels and different programs to each other. And also, if it is sloping, like the Unico Park, it is like creating different activities and inspire people to sit on it or running around or, many different types of the behaviors could happen. So we try to avoid the flat, dry the plaza, but more like a hilly landscape-like plaza. And then, as you can see in here, we again try to integrate the architecture and city and landscape. Architecture, skyscraper, and urban plaza as a city, and then landscape as a hilly shapes and all of those kind of natural trees. And also, we can say nature and architectures are well integrated. And then the tiny scales of the people and the huge scales of the 390-meter skyscrapers are well connected. So this is like a human place for the people, but it is 300-meter high or 390-meter high. So small scales, human scales, and urban huge scales are well connected to each other. So even in such a huge development, our strategy is the same. Normally, skyscrapers and urban plaza is separated. Landscaping and skyscrapers are separated. But we try to combine them to create the new value, the new concept of the place for the people. And then creating, of course, the ground level, and then the 300-meter high is normally separated, but we try to visually connect them to bring people, to make people feel, I like to go there. Or from above, I can see the city as a whole. So those kind of the trial to reinvent city and architecture and landscape together to create the new concept of the spaces. And then this is the last one, the project with my friend, the Carlo Kalma, and the good collaboration. And from 2018, but now I've heard that we are now doing the groundbreaking. So it is happening now. So we call it, this is a cloud tower. And it's like this. It's almost like a 100-meter high. And we have like the the architecture museum here, as it says, and then the retails on the lower part, and then we have the housings with large balconies and protected balconies and onsen like the open bath. So it must be really wonderful place. But you can see this is like even if it is, of course, this is a 100-meter high, so it's almost like a skyscraper, but it's different from the normal skyscraper because, of course, thinking about the climate condition in Philippines, the skyscraper, like clean, covered by the glass, is not so much fitting to this condition, I thought. And then we try to have sticking out those kind of the frames to create the terraces or sunshades and those kind of the greens to put such a human scale like the layers around the skyscrapers. So this is the diagram. We have those kind of the layers for the people's life, full of the greens and protected from the sunlight are created. And then finally, the whole shape is expressing this is not just a, how to say, enclosed skin of the skyscrapers, but more like open skin, open environment, and protected open environment attached onto the facade of the buildings. And finally, it is like a vertical layer, like a landscape, and the vertical sky, vertical like a village, like buildings. And those kind of irregular shapes itself is also quite like showing how the basic concept of the skyscraper is different from the normal skyscraper.
I shared a lot.
My page.
This is the diagrams to show how, such climate conditions is reflected. Nice open terraces. And again, this will be built very soon. Okay, so it's almost the time. So thank you very much. Yeah, this is it. But you can see this is not only about the physical nature, physical architecture. Of course, in this last project, you see how beautifully the physical nature and artifacts are melted to each other. But at the same time, this is not only about the physical nature and physical architecture, but inside and outside, simplicity, complexity, and the relationship between the private and the public, and the relationship between people and people, connected, separated, but at the same time, it's also possible. So all of those kind of the opposite things could be well melted, well integrated, again, to reinvent our life. So that has been the main topics for me, and then that is the way, the methodology, the way I develop those kind of new concepts of the architecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we have some questions now that the audience would like to ask, and maybe I'd like to read one for you. Much of your designs center around the melding and integration of many varied factors of the environment. Giving consideration to so many things can be very complex, and many designers decide not to do so anymore. Can you shed some light on how you go about your design process?
Wow. Because I think this is very important, not just to cut out, how to say, if you have nature architecture, or if you have the connected situation and the separated situation, of course it's easy to cut out one side and then focus on the other. But thinking about the positive complexity of our human life and human society, I like to realize both of them every time. Simple, complex. Of course, I like both of them. Try to integrate them. And then the private, public, both of them is very important. So I always like to realize both of them. And not only realize both of them, but between nature, for example, and architecture, we can have like a gradient in between situations. Completely architectural or completely natural, but 70% nature, but 30% architecture, or 20% nature, but 80% architecture, or something like that. So different blendings could create different environment for us. And that is like a richness of the people's living environment. That is why, of course, even though it is quite like challenging and it's really hard to find a way, but yeah, it's possible, and it's more exciting, I think.
Tokyo, with its density and of course the massive population, um, how are these spaces activated? Like, how are they received by the public, and how do they affect the immediate community around them? Especially with the insertion of greens, which you don't, normally see when you think about a city like Tokyo, with, of course, the neon lights and all of that. Is this something that works in that setting, and how do you convince the other stakeholders to kind of like celebrate, if you may, something like this?
Well, yeah, of course, the Tokyo city is rather already too much in a sense. But at the same time, Tokyo is the place, like you feel quite like a human scales, because it's, but the bottom of the Tokyo, it's made by many, many small things. And as you know, most of the Tokyo independent residential buildings is 2-story high or 3-story high, made by the timber and the paper. So it's quite like a dense, but at the same time, it's human scales. And then the small pathway behind the main street is also quite like a 2-meter wide, full of the like a small tree pods and the bicycles and trashes and so on. So those kind of the human touch has been like the great part of Tokyo. So even though we are doing such a larger, like a redevelopment in the city, I think it's nice to integrate such a human scales and the larger scales, because large scales also could have like a nice dynamism or like a different positive aspects. But if you can combine them, small human scales and the larger scales together, then we can get both of them. And for example, the Tokyo, the skyscraper project in Tokyo, of course, skyscraper itself is huge, but if you can create such a, like a large hill, like landscaping part in 300-meter high, then it is not just a, how to say, enclosed black box in the middle of the city that people can recognize. It's also part of our, like a place for life. So, and then, of course, the developer, the Mitsubishi Real Estate Incorporate, they also thinks they can do something better than before, more and more. They try to create better living environment, urban environment, but they thought it's different things is possible, different better things is possible, and that is why they are welcoming our proposals to create such a huge plaza above the 300-meter high. And yeah, we all feel those kind of the trial could open door for the new concept of dense, already too much developed urban situations. We can have more things to do.
So, my name is Rebecca Plaza. I was looking, great lecture, first and foremost, but I was looking at your work, particularly with the Serpentine Gallery Pavilion. I was there in 2013, so it was really a great experience to be in that space. But I saw that I feel like there are a lot of, maybe this is just me stereotyping, but I feel like there are a lot of similarities between that and the Kalma Tower. Was the Serpentine Gallery Pavilion sort of seminal to your work that kind of informed the later work? Because I saw also, like, I remember being able to just walk around the Serpentine Gallery Pavilion and like sit on the top. and then you talked about Uniqlo and how like you've activated the facade and the roof to like make that experiential in some way. So are a lot of your like past projects seminal to what you're doing, particularly I think between Calma Tower and the Serpentine Gallery Pavilion?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Of course, the Serpentine Pavilion was the most important project for me, and that concept is quite strong, especially for that project. The smallness of the frames, the grids, are very important because then you can walk up and then you can play around. It's like an open playground, and that concept is translated into the Uniqlo in a different shape. And then for this Kalma Tower, of course, the language-wise, it is similar to the Serpentine Pavilions, but the concept is quite different because the location, the climate condition is different. So we started from the climate conditions for this Kalma Tower in Philippines because, it's more like a Asian tropical or monsoon-like climate, different from the London. And then this is from the starting point. This is skyscraper with many housing. So how we can reinvent such a high-rise skyscrapers in this particular climate conditions? And then we started from simple volume, but this is not enough if it is covered by the glass. Then it starts to have branches or the balconies. And of course, those balconies ideas are relating to this French project, the Montpellier project, a lot of balconies, but in a different way. Because in Kalmar Tower, it should have more like more frames or more like a shadings or more branches should come out. And then it could have many greens and open terraces, creating the outdoor living environment like a French project, but more linking to the interior life. So inner life, exterior lives are well integrated. And then finally, we thought this could be like a new typology of the skyscrapers. Of course, the design language is coming from the Serpentine Pavilions, but as a skyscraper, the meaning is completely different. And then, of course, we don't have small frames in this Kalmar Tower case because of the whole scales and because of the programs and so on. But the meaning of these frames is also different. It's more like the devices to re-interact with the climate condition and the lifestyles. So finally, as you can see, those kind of irregular shapes is also creating the new shape of the skyscrapers. And so I don't, in a sense, the design language is similar, but the concept is different in this Kalmar Tower from the Serpentine. And then the concept is the same, but the design language different for the Uniqlo project. So every time, of course, we have like such a history of our project development, but nothing is like a dead end of our thinkings. All the concept and all the project could be the starting point of the next project, and it could be developed and transforming to each other. So in that sense, but in this Kalmar Tower case, I really definitely love it because it is showing the new, simply visually new concept for the skyscraper.
It'll be very different compared to all the other buildings here in the Philippines. So yeah, we're super excited for that. I have another follow-up question. So thank you so much for sharing and shedding light into the whole process from project to project. I do have another follow-up question because I'm really quite interested also to learn how your background is very your formal background, your formal training is by and large done within Japan, right? But your body of work is like basically all over the world, which is fascinating. How are you able to ensure that the work that you do is very is contextual? It responds to sort of the cultural differences and the challenges of every particular country that you're working in, because I think like even me, as somebody who's practicing in the Philippines, and I find it difficult, especially when I'm doing something in Manila and then I'm doing something in another city in the Philippines. Like it's quite a bit of a process, but I can only imagine how much more difficult that is when you're working in a global scale. So it would be great to hear how you sort of go through the process of working, like say like now you're doing I believe you're working on the master plan of Paris, and your other projects like in London, in the Philippines. Like how do you ensure that it's contextually rooted and yeah, and culturally sensitive as well?
Yeah, well, actually, it was like a really step-by-step process. And but I think the simple important things was even when I have been working within Japan, I like to create the place for the people. And then the fundamental aspects or fundamental value of the people or fundamental interesting point of the people's life, I like to based on these kind of the quite strong basics. And then, of course, if you have the project in a different country, then the cultural background is so different, and the contextual, historical background is different, climate condition is different, but still, you are the same people. And so those kind of the very, very basic things, creating place for the people is the simple starting point. Then, on the other hand, of course, it was like a really step by step, maybe for more than not 10 years, but 7, 8 years, try to understand such differences and the new the important context and the important background of different countries and the different clients, and then try to respect that and then try to react properly to that. And then, of course, at the beginning, maybe I was a bit poor to do that, but throughout the whole experiences, losing many competitions or doing the small project and step by step, I learned a lot to not to adopt, but to respect that. And finally, anyway, the architecture design is like a carefully listen to everything relating to the project. Even in Japan, we have a project in Hokkaido and a project in Tokyo. It's completely different, and then different characteristics of the client. So how to respect the client and how to understand deeply what they like to do, and then how we understand climate conditions and the specific characteristics of this plot, it is quite important. And then in that sense, it is also the same to do the project in France, project in Budapest, or in China, or in Philippines. Every time I like to be open-minded and try to understand their visions and cultural background, historical background, climate conditions, and then try to understand everything, try to respect everything, and then we start. And that is simple key for me to do the project internationally, because but of course it took time, and then of course it is still, I'm in the process of learning how to respect all of them more in a better way. But I'm now enjoying it, because every time you see something new for you, and that is quite like a exciting things, the new visions, new style of the architecture of the local conditions, and the new climate, and a new way to deal with the climate in your lifestyles in a different situations, and all of those experiences to encounter with a new situation is quite exciting to learn, and I could enjoy it. Maybe that's the most important thing. But you just enjoy it, and you just be together with the local people, and then you respect honestly you should be honest and you should respect the whole situations, and then you can start.
So we have here a question from Imelda Akmal of Arcanesia from Indonesia. She says, I attended your presentation a few times, and you consistently try to combine nature and architecture, even try to blend them. What was the biggest challenge to applying that complexity in your architecture? Do you put a different approach, in different places? And how do you solve that challenge?
Thank you very much. Yeah, of course, it is technically it is challenging, and then but recently I think more and more different technologies is coming up. So it's getting more popular and popular. Physically bringing the greens onto the buildings, but fundamentally I think it's more important things is not just bringing the physical greens on the buildings, but also creating, how to say, or breaking down the boundaries of our mindset to between the nature and the architecture, because sometimes the nature is very strong, so we need to protect ourselves from the nature. But sometimes the nature is quite like a friend for us. And if you just shut out nature, even though we have greens on your terraces, but if you, in your mindset, if you shut out the nature, that is like just a decoration of the nature on the buildings. But the important thing is people open our mind to accept such an unexpectedness, even such an unexpectedness of the nature, and as a part of your life, and then gets more open mind. And sometimes a rainy day is a rainy day and sunny day is a sunny day, and you can find your own, how to say, nice things to do in rainy day or sunny day or something like that. So not only just physically creating the blending of the nature and architecture, but I like to create such a living environment as a whole where people can be more open mind and breaking down the barriers between their traditional, fixed lifestyle within the architecture to open to accept the nature and as uncertainty of the nature in a sense. That is but that is now happening, and it's not only about the building itself, but the urban planning is also relating to that, and so on. So those kind of the challenges is quite interesting, and that is why I can continue thinking about such a basic questions.
Quite late over there. So before, we ask you for your maybe last thoughts about architecture in our city, and the last message for everyone. We'd like to take a photo with everyone here and maybe a screenshot.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe we'd
you
like
very
to,
much.
last thoughts.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's really wonderful to talk with you, and those kind of the discussions always inspiring. And I hope that to visit your place.
Yes, we hope to see you here in the festival and show you how we celebrate architecture here.
Thank you very much. Great.
Thank you so much for the talk. We really had fun.
Thank you for
so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.